Okay, everybody, here is another episode of B Sharp and C, for which I know I'm going to get a lot of negative comments. It's refreshing in a way that people care so much about music. I like the fact that people get emotional about the music they listen to and the music that I talk about, because when I do these episodes, I used to really make it a point to always be positive, but I think there are times to just come out and say some things that need to be said. And in my honesty, in my efforts to be honest and forthcoming, I've offended a few people. And I say, good. That means that there's still a lot of people out there that care about music enough to get upset and to leave a nasty comment on someone's YouTube channel. So thank you. Keep it coming. That being said, today's episode is not going to be any different. It is the atrocity, their words, of Led Zeppelin's 1985 Live Aid performance. I did do a little bit of background research on this. I wanted to come at this a little bit with my eyes open because it's so controversial, even from the standpoint of the musicians involved. During interviews and years later, decades later, in interviews, just about all of the musicians involved have come out and have said some negative things about this performance. So I feel that it's okay for me to be brutally honest, but I wanted to watch it anyways, and I want to watch it with you. So let's go ahead and do that. This episode of B Sharp and C, we're going to do bits and pieces of the disastrous 1985 Live Aid performance by Led Zeppelin. Okay, here we are. The video is queued up. Let's go ahead and start right away. This is the song Rock and Roll. We're going to listen to bits and pieces of it. There is a portion of Stairway to Heaven that I want to listen to also. It's Jimmy Page's guitar solo, but let's get right into this performance.
It'll be a short intermission while I get some...
I should plug in my headphones so I can hear the performance, which might be something I regret. So as we see here, Phil Collins is on the drums, Robert Plant is obviously vocals, Jimmy Page guitar, John Paul Jones bass. Let me just say something here. There is another drummer, which they don't really show all that much, but you will see Phil Collins look over to him a few times, and I know that look that Phil Collins is giving, and it's not always a look of, man, you're so good, we're just really rocking this. I just really get the impression that they should have rehearsed this more than they did.
2, 1, 2. Been having a good time. What?
So before we get into this also, I think it's important for me to come out and say that I've never obviously performed in front of an audience like this. I mean, heck, I don't think I've ever performed in front of more than 20 people. So this is a huge audience. So there's a lot of pressure, but I will say this, okay? Music legends, no matter who they are, just can't not perform a song for months or years and then get together and say, well, we're legends. We were revered way back in the day. We're rock gods. Nothing could go wrong. And then just expect to go out there and give a flawless performance. Music legends are usually the legends they are because of hard work. So if you haven't been working and you haven't been practicing or rehearsing something, just resting on your laurels, is that what they say? Right? Is that how the expression goes? Is not going to cut it.
Phil Collins on stage for what is now being called the Led Zeppelin reunion. This is the one that a lot of people have been waiting for.
Look at the size of this stadium. Now, mind you, there have been some pretty good performances at the Live Aid event, right? There was, I believe Phil Collins even did a piano performance, which is interesting. I'll cover that one day because he made a mistake playing the piano that was horribly noticeable. And Queen did their famous performance, right? Dire Straits did a bunch of great songs, and they even had Sting come out and perform with them. You have, I don't know, 80, 90,000 people here. And the Led Zeppelin reunion was the event everyone was waiting for. So imagine watching great performances by Queen and other people. And I don't know the order in which these were done, so I don't know if Queen had already performed or not. But imagine being there where a lot of people brought their A game. Like there are a lot of famous performances from Live Aid. And this one is also famous, but not for the reasons you would expect.
I'm not going to give away the whole set, but I will tell you this. That's rock and roll, and they're doing Stairway. Let's go to the stage.
All right, so the first thing I noticed is just it's a bunch of dudes having fun, really. The guitar and the bass and the drums are not perfectly in sync. So it's kind of like a garage band feel, which is fine. You have Phil Collins on the drums here. He is working with another drummer in tandem, which I'm still trying to figure out if that was a good decision or not. And then Robert Plant's voice is just off, like off, bad off. I think he needs like Mucinex or something. I don't know if there's something wrong with the microphone. From what I remember, so there have been interviews upon interviews upon interviews, and Phil Collins will say that, Jimmy Page was off, and he'll say also that the other drummer was off. But the interesting thing is, he came right out and said, "Look, man, you had about 90,000 people in that audience, and no one seemed to care. They all seemed to like it. Everyone was having fun," he said. Okay, so so far I mean, in my opinion, and for what it's worth, because I'm just a dude on YouTube, right? But for my opinion, They just needed to rehearse. It seems like no one is really fully sure as to what the other is doing. That's what it looks like. And interestingly, that is what a lot of these musicians said in interviews after, right? In fact, right after the performance, there was an interview where they basically came right out and talked about how there was some difficulties with the performance. And I mean, heck, man, we can see it right here. But let me go ahead and end this, and we'll do portions of Stairway to Heaven. Okay, so before we start Stairway to Heaven, I'm curious, what is your take so far? I actually think if I was in the audience, see, that's the thing that I look at. If I'm in the audience, I'm thinking, wow, they're kind of off, but I'm still having a really fun time. I'm still watching legends do what legends do best. And I really think that they just needed to rehearse more. There are some interviews, and I'll see if I can include some things depending upon the time constraints that we have. But they did not, admittedly, all of the musicians admittedly did not rehearse as much as they wanted to. I think they had a half hour or something like that. One of the big things that Jimmy Page says is that Phil Collins just didn't know the material. Jimmy Page thought that Phil Collins knew the songs. So he kind of trusted that Phil Collins knew the songs. So he blames him a little bit. But I would actually say, well, Jimmy Page, this is your song. This is your song. So you're kind of almost tasked with being responsible for finding out that the people you play with know or don't know the songs. And if they don't, and you didn't research it or find out ahead of time, and they play live with you, then you should accept the consequences that come with that. I mean, this is a huge concert too, by the way. I mean, you have 90,000 people, I think, were there. So it's a gigantic concert. The audience is huge. Why would you treat this as though you were playing at Bill's Bar and Grill down the street in front of 100 people? You have 90,000 people. So I almost feel as though whoever was in charge of the band and in charge of getting the song and songs performed, I would think that they hold the brunt of the responsibility for not having the band and the songs ready for this performance. But I'm not a traveling musician, so I really don't know how all of that works. But let's give a listen to Stairway to Heaven. I mean, look at this place. It's huge.
Okay, well, that was kind of up-tempo. This is something that sort of takes the mood down a little bit and yet lifts everything up. Maybe, who knows?
Oh, he's starting the song. I hear organ. I don't know if that's John Paul Jones on the organ. All right, so the guitar's out of tune. You just heard the G string play flat. I think that was the G string. It might have been the B. And he's missing strings. I mean, they could also just be drunk. But I do know after watching the interviews, like I said, if you want to research this, it's actually kind of funny because none of the performers afterwards were like, oh, yeah, we killed it. None of them defended the performance.
There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying the stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with the words she can get what she came for. Ooh, oh, and she's buying stairway.
So far, it actually this doesn't sound all that bad. I mean, Jimmy Page's playing leaves a little bit to be desired, but it doesn't sound bad.
There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, 'cause you know sometimes words have two meanings. In a tree.
So I've made this clear over the years that I've never thought that Jimmy Page was a super polished guitar player. And I know that Led Zeppelin has fans who vehemently defend everything Led Zeppelin, even at the cost of sounding unreasonable. I've had people send me nasty messages saying, "How could you say this about Jimmy Page? La-di-da-di-da, he's a legend." And I never deny or have denied the fact that Jimmy Page is a legend. But you will never hear me say that he is a clean, polished, mistake-free guitar player. He doesn't play like that. That is not how he plays. That's not what made him famous. You can tell that he doesn't sit home and just play this song 5 times a day, because if that was something that he did, it would sound better. The guy's got a life. He enjoys his life, and I know that this was kind of a reunion for them. So I don't know how long he had gone without playing, or at least playing this song or performing before this. I didn't research any of that.
By the brook, there's a songbird that sings. Sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven. You know what I mean?
The organ solo's out of time. They just didn't rehearse.
And it makes me wonder. Oh yeah. There's a feeling I get when I look to the west, and my spirit.
For as much as I think his singing is off at times, it's funny how the quality of his voice is just so beautiful. And I think that that's something that you get when you listen to Robert Plant, when you are a Led Zeppelin fan. You're always going to get the fact that it's just Robert Plant's voice. It has such a warm and different type of quality. It's made for this type of music.
It's fine for living. In my thoughts I sing rings of smoke through the trees, and
But you can hear the background music. They don't have a damn clue what's happening right now. I mean, the guitar's all over the place. The keyboard is coming in at the wrong time. So you can tell that it's just an unrehearsed song. All right, I want to hear when the drums come in. So let's give a listen.
if there's a bustle in your head,
Phil Collins was like, "I'll make it sound like In the Air Tonight."
don't be alarmed now. It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road, John.
I don't know if John Paul Jones is using a Fender Rhodes as a bass guitar for the bass. I can't see him.
And it makes me wonder.
there's a bass player up there. I literally don't know how to even explain this, but there's something weird happening with the bass guitar. Its tone is off. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. All right, let's go to the guitar solo. I don't know what drum fill that was before the guitar solo. I don't know what the heck they were doing. And then it almost seems like Jimmy Page didn't know to come in and start the guitar solo. So right away, the guitar solo started off horribly shaky, and it was not Jimmy Page's fault. So the drum fill came in, the guitar solo was about to start, and Jimmy Page didn't start. So I actually think he recovered quite well. I mean, if you look at what he did, and this is actually a nice way to kind of play off the cuff, he recognized he just missed his cue to come in with the guitar solo. So he just did some weird, arpeggio, it looked like. For a couple of measures to get back into it, and then he started the guitar solo, and the rest of the band picked up on it. At least I think that's what happened. Robert Plant is actually looking at Jimmy Page at this point, probably enjoying the fact that they're about to have a musical interlude, but he kind of gives a look like, oh, are you trying something different here? What are you doing? And those drums are bad. Yep, that's exactly what look at Robert Plant's face. Look at that. He's kind of like, all right, this is where we are right now. This is where we are. This is where the performance has led us. Part of me is almost happy that they're performing like this right now. When does Robert Plant come back? I thought he should have come back already. So So it's going to be difficult for Robert Plant because usually this guitar solo is very defined. It's broken up into to parts. It's a very beautiful guitar solo, and it has sections. When it comes to an end, as it's approaching its end, it's very easy for Robert Plant to be like, okay, now I'm going to come back in and sing. I don't know where the heck Jimmy Page is right now with this guitar solo. Okay. All right. Look, this video has already gone longer than I wanted it to go. I'm going to have to do a little bit of editing because we're already over 30 minutes. So I'm going to have to take out some chunks to keep this video at a reasonable length. But look, why am I happy this performance is this atrocious? Because it's just atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. Now, again, if I were in the audience having a couple of beers, I would be dancing around with my friends like, what the heck? I don't even care, right? You know, just doing whatever. But watching this, the fact that this concert was recorded, the fact that it was so famous, and the fact that they're so unprepared to play this music is in and of itself a mystery on par with, quantum entanglement. Like, I don't fully understand why they allowed this to happen. So I'm going to say that. At the same token, this is kind of what rock and roll is built on. This is how these songs are made. I'm sure as they were practicing this song and, when they were writing it, getting it ready for the album, I'm sure as the song was in its inception and as it was being pieced together, they had a million performances like this, probably worse, trying to figure out exactly how they were going to play the song. But I will just say, and we don't have time for it, and I do apologize, but I would really recommend doing a deep dive on researching what all the musicians had to say about this. In fact, you know what? Let's just listen to one. Let's go listen to what Jimmy Page has to say about this performance. Okay, here we are. Let's hear what Jimmy Page himself, years later, has to say about this performance.
But that was an underwhelming appearance, maybe also diminished the possibility of a Zeppelin reunion, or was that never really going to happen?
Yeah. Live Aid was appalling.
Yeah.
It was absolutely appalling because everyone was doing different things at that point of time. But the fact was that the drummers didn't know the material, so we were in real trouble. And we had like half an hour to rehearse or whatever, or an hour, and we're still trying to get the drummer to do the opening for rock and roll. And it was said that Phil Collins knew the set. And so we went on, in the end, to this huge, massive audience, and neither drummer knew any of the numbers at all.
I really do sympathize with Jimmy Page here. The drumming was confusing. Two drummers. Why have two drummers if they're not in sync, first of all? Why? But at the same time, why did whoever was managing Led Zeppelin at the time, why did they give themselves an hour to rehearse for what was probably going to be the highlight of a show in front of about 100,000 people or 90,000 people? Who made the decision that that was a good idea? I don't know. But I will say this. I play 4 instruments: trumpet, piano, guitar, and saxophone. And I gave up the guitar for 2 years. I gave up the trumpet for about 1.5 years so I could learn saxophone. Now, I've been playing saxophone for under 3 years. I'm not that great at it, but I've gotten to a point where I feel really comfortable with it, right? I'm not that great at any instrument that I play, but I was getting really good at the guitar. But once I started playing saxophone, I literally just put it on the rack for like 2 years. And then I recently just picked it up and I sound atrocious. I sound horrible on the guitar right now. Why? Well, because I haven't been practicing. I haven't been playing. What you saw in this video right here, doesn't matter if you're a legend or a rock and roll icon, it doesn't matter. If you don't rehearse and if you're not comfortable with the people you're playing with, then this is what you get. Now, Jimmy Page can say all day long that the drummers ruined the show, and I agree that they played a gigantic part in it. But the bass was off, the keyboard playing was off, and Jimmy Page's guitar was just, the tone was not good, and he just wasn't, I think at that point he had checked out, and he just wanted to get through the set. Robert Plant, his voice wasn't the best quality, but see, I actually understand that because the voice is the most organic out of all the instruments. And if he had flu-like symptoms the night before, it is impossible for him to come out and sing like you would expect him to sing, you know, comparing him to maybe the studio version of some of his songs. It's just impossible. You know, I know that because I've laid down vocal tracks on many of my songs, and so on some of my songs I'm like, that sounds great. And then I try to sing it a month later, and I can never replicate what I did in the studio. Never replicate what I hear in my head. It's just so organic. It's too organic. So I kind of give Robert Plant the biggest mulligan out of this whole entire performance, but I don't know. Anyways, for those of you that don't know, on my YouTube channel here, I do have a playlist called Artie's Singles, where I have about 50 to 60 of my original songs. The one that you're hearing in the background right now is actually one of my songs, so hopefully you enjoy it. But that's just it. I will sign off for now until I do another episode of B Sharp and C. Until then, keep it groovy.